Hey guys, so it's Banless prediction time again, and so as usual, I administered a survey to get other players' predictions. Now before I continue, a huge thanks to all my sponsors. I'll have all of the links down below. Anyways, as for the survey, we had 440 players respond, so thank you all for participating and sharing the survey, and make sure to follow me on Twitter at HakunaMatata so that you don't miss out on any future surveys. So as usual, just a quick glimpse at the player profile among those that responded to the survey, where we basically have about 3/4 of respondents playing at somewhat of a competitive level, where they at least participate in locals regularly, with a quarter being casual players and just one respondent being a non-player and probably more of a vendor or collector. So let's get right to the predictions, starting with the currently unlimited cards, and we are again starting off with Artifact Scythe, where a little over half predicted this card to be banned. I asked this card on the last prediction survey, and at that time 80% predicted it would be banned, and of course it did not get hit. The extra deck locking is not healthy, but admittedly I think Scythe is not as common anymore since the ban of Anaconda, although it would still be nice if this card went away. Now some players think Dagda is the problem instead, but I think these results show that most players don't think that way and predict Scythe will get hit, with only 12.5% predicting Dagda will be banned. Of course, Konami has been known to hit cards around the actual problem card, which might explain the players' predictions. Next is Mystic Mine, which when I asked this in the last survey, 18% predicted this card would be banned, but now this has risen to 45%, probably because of the amount of Mystic Mine gameplay we've been seeing at the top levels of YCS play. OCG banned this a while ago and hopefully this card goes, but honestly at least limiting it would be a start, and almost a third predicted that would happen. Next, let's cover some archetype specific cards, starting with Branded Fusion. The card is still pretty new, but a lot of decks are using this card and it's basically Shaddoll Fusion on steroids, but looks like at this point most predict it will stay unlimited, but almost a third did think that it would get hit and be put at 2. Another related card is Branded Opening, which I think in the OCG it got semi-limited, and about a quarter predicted that the same would happen for us as well, but still, most predict it will go untouched. Then we have Branded Loss, which is essentially a better version of Magical Meltdown and protects the fusion summons, but looks like almost all players expect this card to stay unlimited. Next we have Aluber, which will get you that missing branded card, but most players also expect this card to remain untouched. While Patchwork is a fluffle card, it is heavily used in branded Despia strategies, so some thought that this might get a bit of a hit, but based on these prediction results, 80% predict it will remain unlimited, so hopefully that's the case for fluffle players. On to some Swordsoul cards, which is a bit harder to hit in my opinion. We start off with Ashuna, and a solid quarter of the player base predicted this would get limited, as I think this is the best of the Tenyi since it can special summon from deck and is also a free body. Then we have Emergence, which is a key starter for Swordsoul, which again about a quarter predicted it will get hit to 1, but over half think it will stay unlimited. On to the Brave token cards, we start off with Rite, which over half predict it will get a small hit to 2 on the next list. For the last list, these cards were still pretty new, so it was not surprising that they didn't get hit, and Konami did hit prank kids and pile decks with their bans, so the top decks utilizing the Brave engine were gone. Still, this package is seeing a lot of play with Punk and Dragon Link, so perhaps they do need to start hitting this package. The other card is Water Enchantress, which is another card that people predict will get semi-limited along with Rite, just to hit their consistency. This card is crazy since not only does it start the Brave token plays, it also just serves as an extra body. Now there were players that said Gryphon should just get banned instead so that you can still have the extenders with Brave tokens, but they just don't get the Omni Negate. I think that's a fair statement, but looks like almost all players predict that this card will just stay unlimited. Similarly, Dracoback is another card that most predict will remain untouched, and while that's probably fair, it is a very strong card with being able to bounce, but just serving as a free discard fodder for the Brave package. Next, onto the Flunder cards, we have Map, which 18% predict will get limited, but looks like most predict this will be untouched. It's an amazing field spell that really gets Flunder going, and without it, the deck becomes much weaker and perhaps they have to hit the deck in other ways. We have Wind Barrier Statue, which has come up in the past with other decks, and they banned the Simorgh Link a while back, but this card is still a problem with Flunder and locking people out of special summoning. A good 30% predict this card to be banned, so hitting this will be a relief for most players. Then we have a key hand trap for Flunder and Shifter that just banishes everything, which most predict will remain untouched, and I don't really see Konami hitting this card either. It essentially needs to be at 3 to be playable, and while strong, once Flunder goes away eventually, not many decks other than rogue strategies will be able to use this card. Another indirect Flunder card is Harpie's Featherstorm, which stops monster effects, and the only way to stop this is Red Reboot, which makes this card incredibly strong. Still, only about 16% predict this will get banned, and I'm sure all the Harpie players would hope this card lives. Next we have E-Tally, which recently came back to 3, and now 39% predict it will actually get hit back to 1, since something like Punk decks are utilizing this very well, and it's a very good card that gets you that free body to start combo. Then we have a Floodgate that's been very popular lately following the emergence of branded Despia strategies, which is anti-spell Fragrance. With Imperial Order also getting the ban, perhaps this card will also get the axe for shutting down a key game mechanic, but only 12% predict this will get banned. 19% thought it would get limited, which would at least make a big difference still. Another card that has become popular since the branded Despia emergence is D-Barrier, which is another card that can only be stopped by Red Reboot. However, only about 10% predict this will get banned, with another 10% predicting it will get limited. Completely stopping most extra deck summoning mechanic is quite strong, and with a new watered down version of D-Barrier being announced lately, perhaps that's a sign that this card will get hit eventually. Lastly, on the unlimited cards is Totally Awesome, which was more of a preemptive prediction due to the upcoming emergence of sprite strategies. I don't think they would ban it right away, but over a quarter did predict it would get hit to 1. Konami did preemptively limit Toad before Master Rule 5 was about to take place, but the difference with this is that they need Toad alive to sell Power of the Elements, so they likely keep this alive for now. Among some other unlimited cards that people could recommend, a large number predicted Chaos Ruler to be banned. Being able to mill 5 and potentially add one of them is very strong, and now this card is seeing play in Punk decks and not just Dragon Link. Another card is Skill Drain, which only recently came back to 3 for some unknown reason, but people predict that it would go back to 1. Lastly, another common card mentioned was El Shaddai Winda, which some predict will get banned, and this card always comes and goes in terms of ban list predictions. Now let's move on to the limited / semi-limited cards, and starting that off is Crystron Halqifibrax. It got put to 1 on the last list, which is a start, but I think it's a card that does have to go at some point, and almost half predicted that it will get axed on the next list. Another card that's been limited for a while is Red Reboot, which some think it should be banned while others think it should be put to 3. Looks like most players predict it will stay the same. I think if this card were to get banned, then that means there's likely other hits to certain traps like D-Barrier to make things fair. A card in a similar situation is Called by the Grave, as some think it's a card that should get banned so that tier 1 decks can't play through interruptions even better than it already can, while others think that it should just come back to 3. Again, like Reboot, looks like more than not, people predict the card to stay at 1. A card that I'm not sure why it came back is Fairy Tale Snow, which is not a once per turn effect and is dumped to the grave very easily by Branded Fusion. A good chunk and 20% predict this card will get banned yet again, but most do predict it will stay where it is. A card that recently got put to 2 and did absolutely nothing is Dinomight Knight, which about 3/4 predict will be put to 3, and this is usually the case for cards that Konami puts on the semi-limited list first. True Draco is honestly an awful deck to play against, but it has not seen high level competitive play in a long time, so this can certainly come back to 3 with no impact on the meta. Another card that recently came to 2 is Light Sage, which originally got put to 1 because of Orcust combo. Now that Anaconda is banned as well, I think it's probably safe for this card to come back to 3, as seen by 80% of players predicting this to be the case. Other potential changes that people brought up are semi-limited cards like Pot of Desires and Fusion Destiny, which they predict will come back to 3, as well as currently limited Gazelle to be put to 2 at least. Zelamagrate has actually been seeing a lot of competitive success lately with the release of Circle, so I'm not sure if Konami would actually bring Gazelle back at this point. Now onto the forbidden cards, we start off with the infamous Maxx, and looks like as usual a vast majority, 92% predict this card will stay banned, which is even more likely now that we are about to get Sprite, and it would make it the worst possible timing for this card to come back. Then we have Harp Horror, which people have been predicting it will come back to 1 for such a long time, it's just a broken record at this point, and while 56% predict it will come back to 1, I'm slowly losing hope that it's not coming back for a while, even though it probably can. Next we have Colossus, which most do predict will stay banned. The existence of this card can typically shift the meta since decks that search a lot will suffer, and while there's a lot of Thunder Dragon enthusiasts out there, I don't think this card will come back at the moment either. Then we have another broken record in Electromite predictions, and looks like people sorta gave hope now and most predict it will stay banned. Pendulums did get Beyond the Pendulum recently as well, which is a watered down version of Electromite, so perhaps it's time to move on. Lastly we have Blaster, which is another card that many have predicted it will come back, ban list after ban list, but just has not happened. But over a third do predict it will come back to 1 on the next list. Now other potential releases that players have mentioned is Spellbook of Judgment and Heavy Storm. We did get Harpie's Feather Duster back a couple years ago, which is wild, but Konami is probably hesitant with Heavy Storm since destroying your own spells and traps can come with advantages depending on the deck. O-Lion prediction is probably only if Hulk gets banned, and Auroradon did get banned as well, so maybe we can start seeing some tuners come back if Hulk does get the axe. Lastly, here's what player satisfaction levels are for this format, and essentially 42% were either satisfied or very satisfied with the current format, and more importantly, much higher than being dissatisfied. Now compare this to the last time I asked this question in the last format, only 17% were satisfied or very satisfied back then, so it's a big improvement. So related to that, over half agreed or strongly agreed that they like this current format than the last format, so it looks like Konami at least made the format more enjoyable. Now we are about to get Power of the Elements soon, so after tier limits and Sprite make it onto the scene, let's see how this changes. And finally, now that we don't have an approximate date of the next list, we have to make a complete guess now, and looks like most actually think the list will come in September. Power of the Elements comes in the beginning of August, so perhaps Konami waits a little bit to release the list just in case Sprite or tier are too strong, but hopefully we don't have to wait too long for the next list. Alright guys, so that was it for the ban list prediction survey results. Thank you all for watching, and a big thanks to those that participated in the survey. If you enjoyed this video, it would be great if you could share the video and subscribe for more future data content. As usual, a big thanks to my Patreons Eileen Dice Queen, Bold Spider, Cybernetic, Brandon Jaren, Barrelord, Spooky Boogie, Gridora, and Stephen Phillips as always for supporting the channel. It really means a lot. Take care guys.